Hey kids, how are you doing? It's nice to see you again. My name is Brian Stuart and we are here to study from Reading for Vocabulary. We're starting in Level D on Unit 1. And our subject is architecture. That's a little bit of a difficult word, isn't it? Architecture. Architecture. Our Lesson 1, the title is A Dream Job. So when we think about that, what we're going to focus on is, what do you want to do in the future? Have you thought about that? Let's think about the job architect. Architect. Okay? So that's what we're going to study in this lesson. Let's begin. Of course, there are many different jobs. Look at all these jobs. Can you find the different names of the jobs? We don't have time to go over all of them, but we can just quickly, we can see there's a doctor, all right, maybe there's a lawyer over here, there's an electrician over here. There are many different kinds of jobs. When you think about your future, what kind of job do you want? Well, we're going to talk about one exciting job in this lesson, okay? But let's talk about a few vocabulary words first. As you can see here, a quick basic drawing. Can you draw something like this? Are you a talented artist? If you can draw like this, you can make a sketch. This is a sketch. It's a quick basic drawing. Now, this doesn't look too basic. This looks a little complicated, but a quick drawing of something like your house, a building, your school, that's a sketch. Okay, let's move on. This next word is to decide how something will look or work. When people sit down and they start to think about how to draw something, what are they doing, right? We can say that that is design. Design. We can use it as a verb or as a noun. What is the design of the building? Or he is going to design the building. So we can use it as a verb or a noun. A plan for making something. So this looks very complicated. This is not a sketch. This is a very detailed drawing, but it's a plan for making something. We call it a blueprint. Why is it blue? Because the paper that they draw on has a blue color, and it's very technical. It's very detailed drawings of something. We say it's a blueprint. A blueprint, very technical or detailed drawing of a building. Okay, next one. Do you have a knife like that? It's a Swiss Army knife, right? What something is used for. What is something used for? We can say, what is its function? If we look at this knife, there are many different parts, right? This has a different function from this. This knife, its function is just to cut. This pliers, its function is to hold something very tightly, right? So many things have different functions. What is the function of this tool? Okay, let's move on. Oh, warning, you shouldn't smoke. Of course you don't now. Don't smoke in the future, right? A rule or law, no smoking. We see signs like this many different places, right? No smoking. Jucha kumji, right? No parking, right? So we can say that's a regulation. So we can call it a rule, a law, or regulation. That's a 힘들어 word, right? Regulation, regulation. Okay, let's move on. Someone who works with the law. Okay, as you know, we were talking about jobs before. I pointed out somebody, right? That was a lawyer, right? He was on the side over there. A lawyer is someone who argues for or against a position in a court of law. So they are called a lawyer. There's somebody who argues for something. There's someone who argues against something. There's two lawyers usually in a courtroom, at least two. Okay, next one. Whoa, what kind of crazy guy is that? He's got 4 arms. Okay, the state of being focused and working hard. He doesn't really have 4 arms. He's just really busy. It looks like he has 4 arms. Whew, it's a monster, right? Okay. Next, this word is dedication. If somebody is so focused on their work, they have a lot of focus. And sometimes when you do your homework, you're like this, right? You're very focused on your homework. You want to do a good job. You have a lot of dedication. Okay, that's like yulshim, but also energy and hard work. It's dedication. Okay, next one. Something that could happen. Okay, something that could happen. This is a little bit of a dangerous position, right? Possibility. It's possible that she could fall off. This is not a good idea. Okay, so it's a possibility, something that could happen. But also, maybe she's reading about interesting stories, and she's thinking, is it possible that this could happen? Maybe there's a knight that she's thinking about. Oh, there's a knight in shining armor. It's possible that one day I could meet that person, right? So it's a possibility. What's possible in the future? The next word. Have you been to one of these? Do you like baseball? Do you like soccer? If you go to a sports game, you will go to a large open building where people watch sports. I hope you have the opportunity to go to a place like this. What is this? What kind of building is it? It's called a sports stadium. So we use two words, sports stadium. Okay, so if you go there, you can watch your favorite baseball team or your favorite soccer team. Okay. Wow, this looks like it's in Australia, right? The road is very straight and doesn't curve, and it's very long. We can see really far. Having no end. If something has no end, there's no end. We say it's endless because this, I'll do that right there. This part of the word, when you see that less, it means it doesn't have one. Endless. There's no end. Okay? Endless. The next one, a sudden dangerous situation. Okay, of course this is an ambulance. Looks like somebody is hurt. What do we call that situation? We say it's an emergency. It is an emergency. Emergency. We can also use emergency as an adjective. It's an emergency vehicle. It's an emergency worker. This is emergency services. So emergency can be a noun. It is an emergency, or it can be an adjective. It is emergency services. Okay, let's move on. To do the same as. Of course, this is Mama Duck, and she has her baby ducks behind her. What do baby ducks? All birds, right, really do this. When Mama Duck is walking along, all the little birds, what do? They follow Mama Duck, right? To follow. If you do the same thing as somebody else, you are following them. To follow. Okay, next one. Maybe. Okay, put together in a smart and simple way. So this person is putting together kind of a complicated diagram, but he's thinking about how he puts it together. So he's thinking about it in a smart way, and he's trying to make it simple. So what can we call that? We say that's organized. Organized is an adjective. These plans are very organized, right? We can also call people organized. Maybe you know somebody in school who is organized. They have all their books in the right place, all their pens in the other place. They're very neat. They're very organized. Okay, next. Someone who designs buildings and machines. So this is a type of job. This person is designing maybe a building or a machine. What do we call that person? We say that that person is an engineer. Engineer. So that person is an engineer. Next one is working hard and completing a lot of work. If you work really hard and you get a lot of work done, what can we say? We can say you are productive. Productive. You're productive. Are you productive? At night, do you do all your homework really quickly, or do you play games? Okay, if you play games, you are not productive. But if you study hard and you get your work done, then you are productive. Okay. Next one is sad and having no energy. This person is happy. She has a lot of energy, but these people are not. They're sad. What's going on? They are depressed, right? They're sad about something. If something happens and it makes you sad, or it makes you feel not very good, we can say that you are depressed. I hope that you don't get depressed. If you do get depressed, just think about the happy side. Just think tomorrow is a new day. Something good will happen. So hopefully we aren't depressed very long. Okay. Now, let's begin with the exercises, okay? How well do you remember the words we just learned? Let's go over them. In this exercise, we need to choose the word that best completes the sentence. Our word choices are here, and we need to fill the blank with these word choices. So, what is a sentence? The sentence, in this case, number 1, do you think you could beep our poster for art class? So, what we're thinking about here is you're going to be able to do something. Can you beep our poster for art class? We need a verb. Some of these are verbs, but some of them are nouns. But we need a verb here because we want to do something to our poster for art class. What will you do? If you are a creative person, maybe somebody wants you to create or make an art poster, a poster for art class. So which word is similar to make or create? A, listen. That doesn't make sense. You want to listen to a poster? That doesn't make sense. B, function. Function's a noun. It doesn't make sense here. Design. Design has the same meaning as make or create. That's our answer, right? Blueprint, as I said before, that's a noun, right? So you don't blueprint a poster, you design a poster. So that's the answer. Do you think you could design our poster for art class? Okay, that's the answer there. How about number 2? The question is, or the sentence is, I looked at your beep of the whale. It's really good for a new artist. So somebody did something, right? They made something that shows a whale. If you draw something or you make something, a picture, right, of an object, we can say that that is a picture or a drawing. Or what is similar to drawing here? We have a blueprint. You make a blueprint of a whale? No, because blueprint is for buildings, right? You don't make a blueprint of an animal. That's kind of weird. You make a blueprint of a building if you're an architect or somebody who designs buildings. B, sketch. We talked about this before. A sketch is a basic drawing. So if you very quickly draw a picture of a whale, that is a sketch, and that's the answer, B. What are the other ones? C, site. Site is just a location, right? Site is like a place. That doesn't fit here. A place of the whale? That doesn't make sense. I looked at your emergency of the whale. That doesn't make sense at all, right? So the only one that makes sense is sketch. I looked at your sketch of the whale. It's really good for a new artist. That's our answer there. Let's move on to number 3. The question for number 3 is, the beep of the skull is to protect the brain. So remember when we talked about that Swiss Army knife that had many different tools, and we talked about what is the use of each of those tools? Everything has a use, or what? Let's take a look here. A, blueprint. The skull, of course, is the bone in your head, right? It's the hard bone. What does it do, right? Do we talk about the blueprint of the skull is to protect the brain? That doesn't make sense. Do we talk about the location of the skull? That doesn't make sense either. Do we talk about the sketch of the skull? We're not talking about a drawing of somebody's head. We're talking about the use or the function. What is its use? You have a skull. It's a hard bone in your head. You can feel it right now if you want to with me, right? It's pretty hard. What does it do? It protects your brain. Your brain is inside your skull. It needs protection. So the skull's function is to protect the brain. So the function of the skull is to protect the brain. That's the function. Okay, number 4. Your son broke the law. Oh, no! That's terrible, okay? You need a beep. Okay, so if somebody breaks the law, right, that person goes to court. And what do we find in court? Remember, there's 2 people, one for and one against, right? What type of person do you need to help your son? Do you need an engineer? No, an engineer makes buildings and machines, right? So that's not appropriate. We need a lawyer. Remember we talked about lawyer. Lawyers are the people in court, one for and one against. One is for the client, one is against the client or the person who broke the law. So we need a lawyer. I hope not, but if our son breaks the law, then we need a lawyer. C is artist, and D is architect, right? An artist just draws pictures. We don't need them. They can't help us. An architect designs buildings, so they can't help us. We need a lawyer. Okay. So that's the answer there. Your son broke the law. You need a lawyer. Okay, let's continue from number 5. There are many beep to follow when you drive a car. Now, of course, you don't drive a car, but if your mom or dad is driving a car and you're riding, remember, look at the signs on the side of the road. It says speed limit, don't go too fast. It says you can't turn this way. Those are rules or laws of the road. What is another word that means rule or law? Let's take a look. Well, A is regulations. That's our answer there, regulations. So the answer is there are many regulations to follow when you drive a car. Not sketches, not emergencies, and sports stadiums. That doesn't make any sense. The best answer is regulations. There are many regulations to follow when you drive a car. 6, if Jim had more beep, he would do better in school. What does Jim need to do better in school? What do you need to do better in school? Does Jim need more anger? No, don't be angry, Jim. Don't take that to school, right? Get rid of it. Does he need depression? No, I hope Jim is not depressed, right? If he's sad, he won't do well in school. Does Jim need more anxiety? Anxiety means worry. Now, maybe if Jim worried more, he would do better in school. That's possible, but a better answer is dedication, right? So the better answer is dedication. Dedication means enthusiasm, yulshim, right? He needs energy, he needs dedication, he needs to focus on his work. If he had more dedication, he would do better in school. I hope you have dedication too, right? Okay, let's move on to it's dedication, of course. If Jim had more dedication, he would do better in school. Let's move on to number 7. There is a beep that it will rain tomorrow. So when we're talking about tomorrow, there are many things that could happen tomorrow. Rain is one of those things that it could happen. So when we talk about things that could happen, we are talking about what? Are we talking about a site? No, remember, site is a location, a place. So it's not site. Is it possibility? Yes. Possibility means something could happen. There is a possibility. It is possible. I just used that word in a different way. You can do that. It is possible. Okay, so this word, you can use it in different ways. We say there is a possibility, that's noun. It is possible, that's adjective, right? So we use it in different ways, and these are very common ways to use that word. Okay, so there is a possibility that it will rain tomorrow. Okay, number 8. The beep for the new school is almost finished. I'll send it to you when I'm done. This second sentence is important. Why? Because we're talking about something for the new school. Before a school is built, you have to draw the design of that school. What are we looking at? We're looking at the function for the new school. That doesn't make sense. The site, that could be. The site for the new school is almost finished. The location, right? Maybe they paved the ground. But the next sentence, I'll send it to you? How are you going to send a huge piece of ground to somebody? That doesn't make sense. Next word is blueprint. The blueprint, the drawings. You can send drawings, that's no problem. So blueprint is right. The blueprint, the design, the plans for the new school, the blueprint is almost finished. I'll send it to you, no problem. Not the sports stadium. Again, you can't send a sports stadium in the mail. They won't take it. Okay, but the best answer, of course, is blueprint. The blueprint for the new school is almost finished. I'll send it to you when I'm done. Okay, well that wraps up the vocabulary section of this unit. Let's take a short break. We'll come back and look at the reading. Hello everybody, welcome back. Are you ready to read about being an architect? I am. It's an exciting subject. Let's get started. So we're going to start here with our first paragraph. The reading starts off with a couple of questions, right? A couple of questions. What are they? The first one, have you ever in your life, anytime, have you ever thought of something? Have you ever thought about or of your future? A lot of people do this. Of course, you're still young. Maybe you don't think about it a lot, but sometimes, right, you have a dream or you have a goal. And I can say, have you ever thought about your future? Have you ever thought about what kind of job do you want? What kind of? There are many types of jobs out there. There are many kinds of jobs. What kind of job do you want? You can choose from many. Make a good choice. Here's an idea. So then we have an answer, right? But we announce the answer. This is announcement. Here's an idea. I have an idea. Here's an idea. Be an architect. Yeah, that's a good idea. Be an architect. You could design parks, hospitals, schools, and even sports stadiums. So what does an architect do? An architect designs. What does an architect design? Many things. Parks, hospitals, schools, and even sports stadiums. All sorts of buildings and even outdoor areas. A park is not a building, it's just an outdoor area. But architects will also plan or design those outdoor areas as well, not just buildings. So it's a very exciting and creative job. Okay, the possibilities are endless. You know, parks, sports stadiums, anything you can build or design or make out of a space, right? So the possibilities, there are many different things you could do. They are endless. There's no end to what you can design as an architect. Does this sound like fun? Sure, you bet. Of course. Yes, it does sound like fun. But 그렇지만 it takes a lot of hard work and dedication to become an architect. Sure, it's fun, but you also have to put in a lot of hard work, right? You have to be dedicated to that field, to that job. If you are enthusiastic about something, if you think it's fun, hard work should be no problem, right? A very good saying is, find something you love to do and do that for your job. If you can do that, you're very lucky, right? And this is a good idea for applying that idea. Architect sounds like fun. If you like to design, if you like to draw, it'll be fun. It'll be easy to put in the hard work and you'll be dedicated to that. Okay. So what do you have to do to be an architect? Well, first, right, we're going to talk about different things. When we see the word first, right, we understand that there are going to be different steps, more than one. First we do that. We're going to expect to see second or next or then and maybe third. So usually there's 3, there could be 4, but when we see first, we know there's at least 2, maybe more. First, you must be good at drawing. That's the first thing you need to have or need to be like to become an architect. Why? Because an architect needs to be able to put their ideas on paper. You have to be good at drawing because you need to be able to. You have to have that ability. What ability? To put your ideas on paper. You have to have the ability to put your ideas on paper. You have to be good at drawing. The first step to become good at drawing is making sketches. We talked about that word, of the building or any building. So you go out, you see a building, oh, that's a nice building, sketch it, right? That's the first step at becoming good at drawing to become an architect. So sketch it, draw a simple drawing of that building. Sketches help an architect imagine what their idea will look like. So when you write your sketch, right, it's not very detailed, it's just a very simple, quick drawing, but it helps you to know what the building will look like. Even architects who are working, who have all their training, they still make sketches because they want to show other people, or they want to know for themselves what is their building going to look like. Think of designing a sports stadium. How many people does it need to fit? Where will the water go when it rains? So you see, if you're going to plan a building, if you're going to draw the designs for a building or the blueprint for a building, you have to think about many different questions, okay? For example, how many people are going to be able to fit in this building? How many seats are you going to put? Fit, right? Fit means have room for. How many people can fit in the building? How many seats are there? Is it 10,000 people? Is it 50,000 people? How many people can fit in the stadium? Also, you need to think about practical ideas. Where will the water go when it rains? If it rains on the building, it's a lot of water. Will the water go on the field, the soccer field, or the baseball field? You want the water to go away. So you have to design the building so it makes the rainwater go away. There's many things to think about. How will people leave in an emergency? That's another thing an architect has to consider or imagine, right? So in an emergency, it could be a fire, it could be an earthquake. The architect needs to think, how will people leave quickly and easily? And, obviously quickly. So the architect needs to imagine all the possibilities, right? We talked about 3. How many people will fit in the stadium? If it rains, where does the water go? If there's an emergency, how can people leave quickly? Those are only 3. There are many, many possibilities, many possible things that could happen to that building or with that building. The architect needs to think about all of those possibilities. He needs to imagine in this way, in that way, thinking about all the possibilities. An architect must think like an engineer. We talked about engineers before in the vocabulary. Engineers design buildings and also machines. Engineers have to think about all the different functions of a machine, or the possible uses or possible things that can go wrong with a machine or building or whatever they're making. So in this way, architects are similar to engineers because they have to think like an engineer. Okay. The look and the feel of a building is just as important as its function. So what we're comparing 2 things. The look and feel of a building, right? That's important. It's just as important as its function. So we're comparing these 2 things and we're saying that they are both equal in importance. So we talked about the function, how many people will fit in it, what happens when it rains, if there's an emergency, how do people leave. That's kind of the functions of the building, right? Of course, the main function is that people go and watch a sports game, but you have to think about all the other things, and that's the function. But that's important, obviously. But just as important is, how does the building look? How does it feel when you look at it or when you're inside it, right? So the look and the feel of the building is just as important. It's not less, it's not more, it's the same importance as the function. So function of the building is important, but also how it looks and how it feels is just as important. So think of a large office building. It needs to have plenty of space, right? And be well organized to function well. So in a large office building, the office workers, they should say, oh, this is a nice building. They feel good in the building and they can do their jobs easily. That way it will function well because buildings are for people, right? It doesn't just function well. People have to like that building. And we like a building because of what it looks like and how it feels when we're in that building. Okay. But this isn't all. That's not everything, right? It needs to make workers feel relaxed and productive, right? So that we talked about that a little bit too, the look and the feel, right? It needs to make workers feel relaxed and productive. If workers feel relaxed and productive in the building, they can do their jobs more efficiently. If it makes them feel fatigued or depressed, then it won't function well. If you have, for example, think about that. Your office building has low ceilings and not very good lights. People, they feel like this, and low lights, it feels like they're in a cave. That's not very, that doesn't make people feel energetic or happy. It makes them feel sad and depressed. So it won't let them function well. The building won't function well. So that's what we're talking about here. The building, it needs to make workers feel relaxed and productive. It refers to the building. Okay, next one. A house, this is another example. We talked about office building, now let's talk about a house. Architects also design houses. A house needs to feel warm and relaxing. Of course, you go home, you want to feel warm, you want to relax, right? Relax after a hard day. A museum, another example, should look important. So if you go to a museum, it should look like an important building because museums are important, a place of learning. In this way, an architect needs to think like an artist. That's interesting. Before we were talking about an architect needs to think like an engineer because you have to think about all the different possibilities that could happen with the building. But an architect also needs to think like an artist in terms of how a building looks. When people look at the building, what does it look like? What feeling or impression do they get from the building? So it's like a combination of engineering and artistry, right? Very interesting job. Okay. Once the idea is set, that means finished. Once you've got your idea, okay, I have my idea, it's finished, it's set. I've got a good idea. The architect makes the blueprints. Okay, so the architect, is thinking about different ideas, thinking about the different looks, and then once you've finished with that, now it's time to make the blueprints, the detailed drawings. The builders are the people who make the building, the construction worker or the construction company. They're going to build the building. They use the blueprints as a map when they make the building, right? So construction workers or construction company builds the building, but they don't know, what the building's supposed to look like if they don't have a plan. They need blueprints. They follow the blueprints as a map, okay? So as you can see, building a building takes many different people. There are many regulations the architect must follow. That's another thing that you have to consider as an architect. Not just think about all the possibilities, not just make it look nice like an artist, but you also have to kind of be like a lawyer because you have to know the regulations. How wide should the doors be? If there's an emergency, the doors have to be a certain width so people can get out. How many exits should there be? How many emergency facilities, like if there's a fire, right? There should be a fire alarm on every floor, right? There should be proper lighting. The ceiling, like I talked about before, how high is the ceiling? That can also be a regulation, okay? If you put protection from noise of the floor above you, that is also a regulation here in Korea for apartment buildings, right? So there are many regulations or laws the architect must follow when designing a building. Like a lawyer, as I said, like a lawyer, an architect must know the law. The architect has to know all these regulations. Everything about the building must be correct or it can't be built. If the architect doesn't pay attention to the regulations, then the building can't be built. It will not be approved. Being an architect is like being an artist, an engineer, and a lawyer all in one job, right? So it's a very interesting job. Okay, let's take a look at a video of a blueprint. And this is kind of cool. It looks like this, of course, is a model design, but they're building a home here, right? And this is you know, a nice little thing. The architect designed this home, okay? And of course, you won't build it with a crane, but this is, you know, the building is built from the plans. An architect has to visualize and imagine how it's going to be built, what are the materials, what it's going to look like, and also make sure that it fits with the different laws or regulations to make sure that he didn't do anything that is not according to law. He has to follow the regulations. So that's what we mean when we say an architect has to be like an artist, an engineer, and a lawyer. It's a very exciting job. So if you're thinking about what kind of job you want to have when you get older, think about an architect. It's like 3 jobs in one, but it can be very creative and it can be very fun. Okay, let's go over the comprehension questions. This story is about what were we talking about? Okay, this story is about what? Being an artist, being an engineer, being an architect, or being a lawyer. Well, we've talked about that, right? We've said that an architect is like being an artist, an engineer, and a lawyer all in one. Right? So yes, we talked about artist, we talked about engineer, we talked about lawyer, that's true, but the story is about an architect being all 3 of those jobs. So the answer, of course, is C. This story is about being an architect, okay? Because being an architect is like being an artist, engineer, and lawyer all in one. So our main subject is architect, that's the answer. Okay, so what is the story about? What is the main topic? Okay, next one, 2. An architect must think like an engineer by. Okay, so we said an architect has to be an artist, an engineer, and a lawyer. But this question is asking us, why is it like an engineer? How is it like an engineer? So, what do engineers do? Do engineers know the law? Well, maybe engineers do, but that's not part of their job. That's not the right answer. Lawyers, okay? Lawyers have to know the law. But we're talking about think like an engineer by. Okay, so think like an engineer by thinking of how a building will look and feel. That's more like an artist, right? If you think about how a building will look and feel, that's more of the artistic side of being an architect. Must think like an engineer by building a sports stadium? That's not correct, because that's one specific example, right? That's just one type of building an architect can make. That leaves us with D, by imagining all the things that could happen. That's what we talked about before. An engineer considers all the possibilities of something. When they design a machine or a building, especially when you design a machine, you have to think about all the different possibilities that machine can have. So the answer is D. An architect must think like an engineer by imagining all the things that could happen, all the possibilities. Okay, number 3. An office building should make workers feel. We talked about this. How should an office building make workers feel? Should it make them feel anxious, which means worried? No, hopefully not. You don't want the people in the building to feel worried. Do you want to have them feel productive? You bet. You want to have them feel productive, especially an office building where people go to work. You want them to feel productive so they get a lot of work done. Do you want them to feel depressed? No. Impressive? That's strange. People feel impressive. That's an odd answer. So the best answer is productive. An office building should make workers feel productive. And that's our answer there. Okay. Number 4, an architect must follow regulations or, okay, think about what we talked about. If the architect doesn't follow regulations, what happens? The blueprints will be a guide. That doesn't make sense, right? If he doesn't follow regulations, the blueprints are a guide. The blueprints are a guide in any case. Okay. Must follow your regulations or everything about the building will be correct. That doesn't make sense because or means the opposite, right? He must follow regulations. Regulations is correct. will be correct or it will be correct. That doesn't make sense because or means the opposite situation. If we put and, an architect must follow regulations and everything about the building will be correct, that's possible. But we don't have and, which means equal. We have or, which means opposite. So we need an opposite idea from B. Or the government won't allow the building to be built. Okay, that's it. If you follow regulations, if you follow regulations, the government will allow the building to be built. But if you don't follow regulations, the government won't allow the building to be built. So you have to follow regulations because if you don't, the opposite, the government will not let the building be built. It's against the law. So C is the right answer. The government, of course, enforces the law. So the answer, of course, is an architect must follow regulations or the government won't allow the building to be built. Okay, the little part there. The government won't allow the building to be built. Okay, and D, just look at D. He will be familiar with the law. That doesn't make sense. C is the correct answer. Okay, so what should you do to be an architect? Remember, we talked about three things, okay? First, the architect must be good at drawing. You have to be good at drawing. That's the first thing you need to be an architect. The second thing, you need to imagine all the possibilities. So you have to think about all the different possibilities that could happen. And third, the architect must know the law. So we talked about three things that an architect needs to be or to do to be a good architect. They need to be good at drawing. That's like an artist. They need to imagine all the possibilities. That's like an engineer. And finally, must know the law. That's like a lawyer. So we talked about that. An architect needs to be like an artist, needs to be like an engineer, and needs to be like a lawyer in all of these three different ways. So being an architect sounds like a really exciting, fun, creative job, but it does take a lot of hard work and dedication. So if you think you are good at these things, why not consider being an architect when you grow up? It could be a very fun career for you. Okay, well that wraps up the lesson here, Unit 1. I hope you had a good time and learned a lot as always. We'll see you guys next time. Take care.